Hello and welcome to episode 9 of this Let's Play Space Age series. In the last episode we finished off this ginormous base on Vulcanus. So I mean, there was concrete engines, electric engines, rocket silos, foundries, and then eventually to this mall where we are making just a lot of really good stuff. And what we're going to do in this episode is Fulgora. Now I know we're starting here on Vulcanus is because there's still small percentages of things that need to be sorted. I'm not certain that I'll be able to fix everything 100% by the time I leave here and go to Vulcanus. I'm pretty convinced that there's going to be more problems. This scrappage line, which has a tendency to clog up the moment a problem is found. You know, some of these problems are related to like legendary 4 dot and 5 dot things. So those things need to fill up before this thing will jam, and that's what will tell me that there's something broken. So until it fills up, there's only so much I can fix. I'm not going to go looking for problems. Well, I'm looking for problems that are obvious. Can't find an underground belt that's not connected to the other side or that's pointing in the wrong direction or something, you know, which is generally what the problem has been. Anyway, what we need to do is finish off the last few bits that I want to get done here, which are primarily upgrading all of the mining drills that I've got here, at least on the coal patches with the legendary ones, and the pump jacks on the sulfuric acid. While I'm doing that, we're going to see if there's any other problems develop. And then we're going to get to Fulgora. Yeah, simples. That's the goal. We're going to get to Fulgora and we're going to start. Let's have a go. Alright then, cloud issues aside, those clouds, they annoy me so very much. I'm not entirely sure whether you feel the same way that I do, but I just feel like they're just ridiculously distracting. And the thing is, there's a setting in here which turns them on and off. But this button is temperamental. That's the right word. I turn save the game, I exit the game, I turn off my computer, I come back the next day, I turn on the computer, start the game. This button has gone back to the default. It does not want to stay unchecked. I'm almost at the point where I'm getting a little bit paranoid about it. I'm coming on and I'm checking 3-4 times that it's definitely off before I start the time. Anyway, cloud issues aside, let's move on to the important things. We've got a nice little base here. Let's just go through it. So we've got 4 of these blocks. All of these blocks are identical. These are kind of to deal with the scrap. So the scrap comes down the bus into here. We process it. I've designed each of these blocks to deal with 120 scrap per second. That's the plan. Any of the 1-dot stuff that we chuck out, the non-quality, regular, standard stuff, that goes right and goes into this part of the factory, which is designed to upscale it, scrap it, lose it, chuck it into a void, whatever. Whatever needs to happen in order for it to disappear or be turned into something useful. Any of the other qualities, they exit left and get into the main bus. And I've got 4 of these blocks. And this block, I'm nervous about it. This is a lot of scrap, and I feel like the factory I've built here isn't big enough. But I've run all the numbers. It should work. I think. I'm not going to test it before I run it. That's how I do things. We're going to just hope that it works. If it doesn't, then I guess I am thinking about leaving myself a little bit of bunts on this side and on the other side of the factory, just in case I want to spread out just a little bit more. If I need to expand this factory a little bit, I want to just allow myself that potential. But by the by, hopefully that's just what this should do. From here, from down into the bus with all this quality stuff, we really are talking about probabilities. We are outside the realms of what I can calculate by hand or roughly back of the fag packet sort of job. So I've gone back to the well. I've made a spreadsheet, I've updated the spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet is really just to answer one very, very simple question. And that's how much scrap we get once we start introducing quality. How much quality things do we get as a result of this scrap? So we put some modules in our mining drills of a certain quality percent, and that outputs a certain amount of scrap, of varying degrees of quality scrap. So we get 960 1-dot. This is the amount of theoretical scrap I'm going to feed the factory. This is how much 1-dot we're going to get. This is 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we have to process each one of these. I'm not 100% sure whether we have to process them individually. We could probably send all of this to the same bank of recyclers and it would still work. It would just make the flows a whole lot more complicated. What I've done is I've taken the 1-dot stuff, I've processed it here. This is what we get as a result of processing this 1-dot scrap. And this is the factory that I've just shown you. Hopefully. I didn't design that factory with this spreadsheet. I designed it with the factory planner. Hopefully the numbers tally up. Anyway, we process the 2-dot scrap and this is what we get. We process the 3-dot scrap, this is what we get, etc., etc. Each one of these numbers we're scrapping in separately, and then we add them all up together. And this is the total of what I anticipate this factory needing to be able to process. Or, this is what it's going to chuck at us, and we are going to have to give the factory the potential to scrap all of this. That's the plan. So that's why I've done this. I wanted a number to know how much stuff I'm going to scrap. Right. Now, there are 3 ways that we can improve this spreadsheet. The first way is that we can increase the quality modules that we put in the stuff. So if we go from 12, which is what I put here, to the maximum, which is 24.8, we would need to put that in everywhere. So that's the first upgrade I can do with this, is I can upgrade all of the modules in the machines themselves and create more scrap, quality scrap. Now what actually happens is that our 1-dot scrap now reduces, so we have to increase the theoretical amount of scrap that we are providing it in order to get this number to the amount of 1-dot scrap that I've built. So I've built that little factory which I just shown you. That's designed to process 120 scrap. I'm going to make 8 of those, so that's 960. So we want this number here to be 960, and we need to increase this number in order to get this to 960. So I think, if I remember rightly, There we go. I remember the number 1276. So by increasing the quality of the modules in the machines, we can then increase the amount of scrap. That's the first way we can improve this. Way number 2 is we can research our scrap productivity. So I mean, at the moment I'm about 1.8, but I'm anticipating upgrading this to about 3. Now, in normal Factorio terms, these kind of upgrades are never bad. You know, in normal Factorio terms, we make this number bigger, we get more stuff. But with this scenario, we make this number bigger, that makes more scrap, and that overloads the scrap system that I've built down here. So I'm setting myself a limit of 3. I'm going to get to 3 in the upgrade. I think that's 20 upgrades, so 3 times more scrap than we were originally getting. And then I'm going to stop there because, you know, problems might arise. And the third way we can upgrade things is that this factory has been built entirely with 1-dot machines. So theoretically, I can upgrade all of these machines to legendary, and I can process 2.5 times what I'm currently processing. I can put 2.5 times in this number. I think it's this number. I think it's that number. Anyway, so that could potentially be our final upgrade. But we're, you know, to start with, we are way down here. You know, this is going to take some doing to get to this point where it's producing this number. What was it? 1188, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, whatever this number needs to be to get this to 960. I've forgotten the number. So that's all this spreadsheet does. Is it asks a simple question. We put quality modules in a bunch of machines. We then get a certain probability of distribution of all of these things out of it. What quantity do we get? And that's what I've that's what I am building. You know, we've built the 1-dot stuff. I've got these kind of thin slivers in here. I am really, really, really hoping that I can get all of the quality stuff scrapped in these spaces. We're going to have the same stuff on the bottom half of the factory, so I'm going to have this same slither down here, and I'm really, really hoping that I can get all of the scrappage done in those 4 kind of thin, slender blocks. It might be a bit of a challenge. There is a part of me that thinks that this might need to get bigger. I might need to demolish all of this bus, move it. I am very, very nervous about foundations. We are just working our way through the foundations like nobody's business. I came here with about 300k. I think I've used about 50, and I think I'm going to need another 50 to get the bottom half done at least. And then I've still got all of the, still got all of the factory to build. Like, the idea was to run the bus down this middle set of islands and then tee off on each of these islands. But there's a lot of oil ocean in here I need to fill in. Anyway, what you've also seen is me build the bus. So these, in my mind, I'm trying to design for these further potential future upgrade, and I'm really, really scared about the amount of sushi we're going to produce. Each one of these belts is sushi, quality sushi, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all mixed up, bundled up, just whatever the factory chucks at me. I've given myself 8 conveyor belts here. I've got another 8 conveyor belts on the bottom, and I'm really, really hoping that that's enough to do the job. And I've also got this kind of big sorting mechanism. So this is kind of designed to sort out all of these things. So we're splitting 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're taking 2 of these conveyor belts and we're splitting the qualities off. And then as we work our way down, we're splitting off each of the things. So gears, solid fuel, concrete, ice, stone, steel, etc. And then all of the scrap kind of comes down across into here, and then it feeds its way back along. The idea being, by feeding it along here, I can then utilize this place for scrap. Any overflows can just go up into these little boxes that don't look very big. They probably need to be bigger. Anyway, next things, what we need to be working towards is the bottom half. I need to move the camera, building some of the paths, and just copy what I've done. This is both bigger and smaller than I was expecting. Like the bus that we can see here, this is just it's probably about twice the size as I was expecting. But the factory, if we're considering the throughput, the numbers that I'm looking at, the factory looks like it's going to be pretty impressive. I'm surprised by how small the factory is and how big the bus is. suppose they both kind of compensate each other. Right, so let's do this bottom half. So, we've got a pretty big base. I promised myself I wouldn't talk about clouds. Just accept that it's very, very frustrating, and it's making me more. I'm checking this show clouds button more and more often. I'm getting more anxious about it. This show clouds button, this thing in here, it keeps lying. It lied to me for like a whole day. I'm not going to talk about it. Okay. We've got a big base here. And, you know, when I'm building these things, I build a little bit of a factory. I finish the bit of a factory and move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's only when you kind of finish where you kind of take a step back and you appreciate the thing that I've built. This is how my mind works. And you know, just taking a step back and seeing the thing that I've built here, the conclusion I'm coming to with regards to Fulgora is that this is a resource management heavy thing. Like the numbers that we're getting out of this spreadsheet, like these are all quite scary numbers, big numbers, scary numbers. Like the amount of belts that we need to move all of this stuff is really, really significant. But when we compare the amount of stuff we're moving around, you know, this is a big number, this number up here. The base that I would normally associate with a number this big would ordinarily be much, much bigger. You know, and that's because the machines are so, we don't need that many machines. So all of the bottlenecks that we've got to kind of, all the bottlenecks that I feel like I'm going to experience with this base, it's all going to be on belts. I don't feel like it's going to be anything machine related. Which is, again, a very curious kind of... That's not happened to me with these factories before. So I'm just kind of thinking about, you know... I've just taken a step back looking at the thing that I've built. And these are the kind of conclusions I'm coming to, I suppose. Yeah, so what we need to do now is we need to turn this thing on. We need to start feeding this stuff with scrap. And it kind of leads me to a bit of a quandary, because what I would want to do is I want to show you on the time-lapse all this material flowing through the factory. But I'm so nervous about it. So we've got this kind of huge system of splitters, which is designed to kind of filter out all of the sushi that we're getting as a result of this scrap. You know, the gears, the circuit boards, all of that stuff. So these 8 belts here, this is all of the sushi that we're going to be getting from the rest of from the south half of the base. We've got another 8 belts on the top. So I'm taking 2 of those belts, splitting them off, and just splitting off each of the qualities, and I'm splitting off each of the ingredients as we come across. So each of these should be a different ingredient, assuming that I've got this right. But this kind of system does give me the opportunity to play around with the positions of these items in the bus very, very easily. Easy is relative. I've got to go and change a whole load of splitters. But that's normally a lot more difficult. You know, we have to juggle stuff around. So I'm kind of thinking about where I want to put stuff. You know, I've got a list. I need to make a list of the processes, the clumps of factory that I need to build. The idea is that I want to bring this bus across and potentially come down and up for these big islands. You know, it's a long way, but you know, I think that the loss in foundations of getting the bus over to here, which is where I'm probably going to be, is better than trying to build in this sea of oil. That's the conclusion I've come to. But the idea is that each one of these islands is going to deal with a separate process. And so I really want to position the items in the bus on the side where that process is. I don't want to have to start worrying about them crossing and intertwining and all sorts of rubbish. So I kind of want to I want to feed the scrap in. I suppose we can get these first few processes going, but I think I'm going to cut off the quality. I'm going to stop that going to this big sorter. And so I can just play around with the positions of the things in the bus a little bit as I build. I'm not quite sure how big the bits of the factory I need to build are. I'm still not 100% sure on all of the flows of materials. I've got a list of stuff, but I made a list of stuff when I was building this block here. You know, the block that I've copied 8 times has changed several times. You know, I've built it. I've thought about the thing I've built, got worried, come back, checked it against the numbers, built a new thing, gone away, got worried again, come back. Like, I feel like that. So the potential of that happening for the rest of this factory is quite large. You know, the idea that I'm going to get all of this stuff right first time when we're dealing with like probabilities of probabilities is just very, very unlikely. So I think that's what the plan is. I'm going to feed the stuff with scrap. I'm just going to, you know, get it into these initial areas, and I'm just going to stop it from getting into the main sorter. And then I'm going to move the camera across to each one of these islands and build a process. I mean, I've also been running around and adding in all of the mines that we need for this stuff. These legendary big miners, well, there's 2 things actually. The legendary big miners are so freaking overpowered, and I've researched the mining productivity up to like 500%. So each mining drill is now spitting out like 30 scrap per second each. So it hasn't taken all that many mining drills, which is good for the mining drills. It's also very, very good for the modules. You know, if the less mining drills we need, the less modules we need. I mean, to be honest, on the mining drill front, I think I've got too many of them now. I think we're backing up. Yeah, we've got all of the big mining drills that we're probably ever going to need. You know, I don't see a problem here. The pump jacks are a little bit different. Pump jacks are a little bit more. They're not doing so well. I think it's iron. If I was going to do this again, I would put a lot more iron on Vulcanus. Iron plate. It's just, I concentrated too much on steel. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be doing now. We're going to be, well, I've got to run around and set up all of the train station, the naming of the train stations, the routing of the trains. Got to set up all of that so it's doing it. Got to bring in some stuff from the, you know, get the factory going. and then move on and start using some of this stuff that we're going to be making. You know, bring this base. I tell you what, I've been thoroughly enjoying this base. This is a real mathematical problem. I know I'm whinging about the probability of the probability, but I quite enjoy getting involved with the numbers, you know, the nitty gritty of it, how it works out, enacting those numbers on the base, figuring out where the numbers were wrong, fixing the base, you know, that kind of dynamic. I love it. Anyway, let's crack on. Let's get some scrap into this bad boy. We got some stuff to process. I am 100%, in terms of the numbers at least, 100% completely lost. I've got absolutely no idea what the performance of this thing that I've built is going to be in terms of a raw number. You know, as we look at the fact, so my spreadsheet only really tells a part of the story. You know, it only really describes this part of the factory on the right hand side. You know, the part of the factory which has structure and form and just, you know, the part of the factory that looks like a factory that I would build. It's the only real part I'm happy with. Not just, you know, not just in that structure and form, but also in its performance. I mean, no. Happy is the wrong word. the only place in the factory where I'm not lost in the numbers is this part where it looks, this part with form. The rest of the factory, I am lost, just completely lost. I've got no idea what the numbers are going to be, and that's a real problem because if I don't know what this space is probably going to be the benchmark. The idea of coming and building something that another factory which can produce this same science, that's not going to happen. The plan is going to be to try and juice this one up as much as possible, and then try and match what I can juice here on the other planets. Because Vulcanus, we've got a lot more freedom with how we go about things. We've got free lava, and calcite is just so cheap and easy. Gleba, the plan on Gleba is going to be small tiled factories that hopefully do a multitude of things, and I can join them all together. So if I need to achieve a certain SPM, then I just need a certain number of tiles. It's like I build a little factory, it can do a thing. I need a certain number of those things to do the full job. This has not really got that tile. This is fixed, more or less. So I think I'm going to have to perform some sort of a test onto how much SPM this thing can actually make, so that I can match it with what I build elsewhere, which is also a problem because, in order to get this, to do that test, I need to upgrade everything in all of the ways that I explained earlier, and that's not currently achievable. We're making all of the things that we need, all right? So we're making legendary quality tier 3 modules. We're making legendary EM plants, and we're making legendary recyclers. They're really the only 3 things that I'm aiming at. So they're the only things that I need to upgrade for this factory. The assembly machines, the chemical plants, the pumps, the offshore pump, all of that stuff we're making on Vulcanus. I can just bring that in. The only things that I really care about are the EM plants and the recyclers. And yes, we are making and the quality modules. And yes, we are making those things, but it's going to take some time. We've got to make the modules, to put the modules in the machines, to get the full output, to be able to get those modules, to be able to put them in all of the machines, to be able to... I need to go away, as is always the case with these freaking things in this new space age. I need to go away, do something else, and waste some time whilst we cook up all of the things that we need in these parts of the factory. I've just spent all of that time running over to this. These are the speed modules. I'm not sure. This was all done off camera, so you haven't probably seen this. But we are getting some modules. I'm kind of periodically coming and using particularly the purple ones because I am running out of lower tier. I've used all of the various other quality modules I've been able to accumulate. I've tried to extract them all from all of the places that I've got in Fulgora. I'm running out. So for the moment, I'm collecting the Thor quality module tier 3s just so I can fill in all of the gaps that I've left behind. At some point, this is just going to be set to legendary, and I suppose, what has this been running for? 3 or 4 hours, and I've got 60 of them. I need to upgrade the machines. I need to process more scrap. So that's this part of the factory down here. Let's have a look what we've got. Recycler's not too bad, actually. I think we need about 900 of these things to be able to upgrade that first portion of the factory. There's no point when it comes to all of these little islands, there's no point upgrading any of this until we've upgraded this part, which is the beginning part of the journey. So we got to upgrade this part, then we've got to see what needs upgrading for these other islands. But, for the moment, what we need to do is we need to go to Gleba. It's been coming. I've been thinking, it's been coming. It's the next planet that I need to attack. But it's been on my mind pretty much throughout everything that I've done since I was last on Gleba. How I would go about this. Spoilage just represents such a unique, difficult challenge. It's going to be really tough trying to put any of that stuff into a spreadsheet. How do you include spoilage in a spreadsheet? I am still not 100% sure how I'm going to do it yet. But that's what we're going to do next. That's what we're going to do in the next episode. We are done here for the moment. You know, there's still some things that we need. I need to move the camera. I need to build. I've built in the stuff for the science. I need to build all the rocket silos so that I can start transporting that science at some point. But I don't need any of that science yet. You know, I've still actually got this starter factory over here. It's still producing some science. You know, it's still spitting out enough for me to research some things. It's still spitting out a few of the ingredients that I need. It's not the quality. The module part is completely busted. I'm not even. There's no point. This broke 5-6 hours ago, and I was like, I'm so close. So there's no point fixing it. I'm just going to let it be broken. It doesn't matter. So this has completely stopped spitting out any other modules. That's what I was talking about earlier. While I'm just kind of trying to extract those 4 dots, is because this is broken, and this is kind of where I was getting the modules from before. This is now not working anymore. We've still got plenty of the ordinary kind of normal 3 dots, but these are pathetic. Like, honestly, the one thing I've learned, the lower tiers, tier 2 quality modules at higher qualities are more effective than these ones. Quite dramatically more effective, actually. These things are almost completely pointless. Anyway, we've got lots of these, so this is what I filled the factory with. This is what I'm replacing the 4-dot ones with. Anyway, that's all by the by, because what we're going to do is we're going to go to Gleba. But that's going to happen in the next episode. Yeah, that's it. I hope it's been good. Till next time.